Do you want to get started in woodworking, but you're not entirely sure where to begin? Well, stay tuned, because in this video, I'm going to talk through my story and how I started woodworking. We're going to go over some essential tools that you can use for some beginner projects, what those beginner projects could be, and I'll also talk about the resources that were extremely valuable to me as I started out. What's going on, everyone? My name is Tim Tugnacci, and welcome back to another episode of Casual Builds, the channel focused on bringing you beginner DIY and woodworking content. In my experience, everyone gets started in woodworking a little bit differently than the next, but I think you could probably group them up into three main broader categories. The first one being you had a family member or a relative that you saw woodworking as you were growing up, and you became passionate about that as well. The next one being maybe it was a job that you had, a summer job during school where you were involved in some sort of carpentry and you were able to take those experiences and you continued on that path of woodworking. And the third, you bought a house, you realized you needed to fix something or build a piece of furniture to fit a specific space in there, and figured that it would be easier to make it yourself rather than to buy it online. So I'm going to talk through my story, how I got introduced into woodworking. I'll go through some tips and tricks that I learned along the way that hopefully I can pass along to you as you get started off in this craft as well. So my wife and I bought our first house in 2017. And before then, I had never used a power tool. When we moved into the house, my dad left me 3 tools: a jigsaw, a circular saw, and a miter saw. And that's all I had. So when I first moved in, I was really ambitious. I really wanted to make something. I think I had some scrap wood laying around. And my first project was actually this little shelving unit that I put in my garage over there. So this is the first thing that I made. Made it with the jigsaw, and it's not even screwed into the wall. I just put nails in the back here to hold it up. Kramer, what do you have to say about it? The second project that I made was a shelving unit for a room that lives off of our kitchen. We needed a better way to organize everything in there, and I made the entire thing out of 2x4s. And at that time, I needed a drill, so I went to the store, I picked up a drill and a random orbital sander. And that project, as simple as it was, made that room look so much better and just gave us a lot more storage options, and we still use it to this day. The third project, I kind of went a little bit out of my comfort zone, and that's my piece of advice to anyone that's really getting started in woodworking: is find a project that you would really like to build and just go for it. Because along the way, you'll learn different things, and you're not going to learn it if you don't start. So that project for me was a changing table that I made for my daughter. We had our first child in June of 2018. We needed a changing table. We were looking at some online, but it really didn't match the room or the spot that I really wanted to put it in. So I found a plan online, and the process was super easy. So for that project, I purchased a Craig jig. And if you don't have one of those, I would highly recommend it. I'll leave a link down below to one, and it just makes joinery so much easier. And you can make a lot of other beautiful projects using the Craig jig and some additional tools in the workshop. And then from there, I just made some simple projects like cutting boards, coasters. They're all great beginner projects, and you learn different techniques with each project that you make. And then as you kind of go on, as years pass, you're finding yourself making beautiful pieces of furniture that you're putting in your house that could be talking points when you have guests over. All right, let's talk about tools for a second. We've already covered the jigsaw, the circular saw, the miter saw, a sander, and a drill. You can make a ton of projects with those 5 tools, but there are some other things that you might want to consider adding to the shop as you continue to grow your workspace.
And the first tool that I would recommend picking up after those 5 is the table saw. Most woodworkers would say that this is the most important tool in their shop, and I would have to agree. Not only can you rip boards, but you can also make different jigs to get a variety of different cuts, and it's just a very universal tool that can really help out with probably any project that you're making.
So after you pick up the table saw, there's a few directions that you can take, but it really comes down to what you're going to be building. Are you going to be building furniture? Are you going to be making customized wooden signs? Are you going to be just making things for your house? You really need to figure out what's going to be most important to add to your shop next. So let's quickly walk through the shop. I'll show you the tools that I currently own and the reason as to why I bought it.
So I'd highly recommend picking up a shop vac too, just to help with dust collection. I also purchased one of these Dust Deputy Cyclones and attached it to a drum. I do have a video on that, so go ahead and check that out. And it really helps just to save the filter in the shop vac. I picked up this bandsaw. I think this was probably around $90 from some guy that just needed to use it once or twice with some molding, I think, in his house. I don't know the specific reason as to why I purchased it, but it has come in handy just to make cuts that are a little bit more accurate than using the jigsaw. I got this belt and disc sander off of Amazon, and I think the reason I bought it is because I was trying to make some knife handles that came in a little kit, and I realized that my orbital sander really wasn't cutting it, so I picked this thing up off of Amazon, and it's been great ever since. And here's my drill press. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a required tool when you're getting started, but it really helps if you need to drill a hole that is straight down. And this is a planer. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a must-have tool. However, if you find yourself needing to mill down lumber yourself, it's gonna be a must-have. And then on that note, if you have a planer, you're probably gonna need a jointer as well. This little benchtop one, I think it's 6 inches wide, does the trick for me. Get a router. You'll need it. And a bunch of bits to go along with it as well. And going back to what I said about buying tools based upon the projects that you'll be making, I have a CNC. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a beginner tool. However, if you're going to only be making customized wooden signs, then you'll probably need one. Now let's talk about some beginner projects that you can start making. First thing, shop furniture. Shop furniture is great because it gives you an opportunity to make things that you can mess up on pretty much. So I started off, I made a workbench, I made a miter saw station, I made another workbench, and then I made the table for my CNC. I made the table for my bandsaw, my disc sander. I made the table for my drill press. And by making all of these tables, I learned things along the way that have helped me make other things that I don't necessarily have to put in my shop. So I would highly recommend starting off with shop furniture because it's a great way to learn some new techniques. Another great project that you can make are cutting boards. So this is actually the first cutting board I ever made. You will probably need a table saw, but all it really consists of is ripping down strips to an even, width and thickness, and then gluing them up and clamping them together, and then a whole bunch of sanding later, you have a cutting board. It's a great project too for beginner woodworkers to give out to friends and family on special occasions.
And lastly, let's talk about some resources that you can use as you're getting started out in woodworking as well. For me, that was YouTube. YouTube was very, very helpful for me because there are a ton of videos out there that'll show you pretty much how to do anything. A lot of the shop furniture that I built in here, cutting boards, coasters, just really anything that I have built in the past, I probably learned from YouTube. So if you're new here, my channel is really focused on the beginner woodworker. I'll have projects, tips and tricks, really anything around beginner DIY and woodworking content. So if you like this video, you like some of my other videos too, I would appreciate a subscribe. That would mean a lot. But besides myself, let's talk about some of the other woodworking channels out there that I found very valuable to me as I started out as well. So there are a ton of channels that I subscribe to that have helped gotten me to where I am today. I'm just gonna list out a few, but I'll leave links to their channels down below if you're interested. And each one kind of has their own specialty, and I'll try to group it up by that as well. So I would say Fix This, Build That, Shop Nation, 1 Minute Workbench, John Malecki, I Like to Make Stuff, Make Something, Jimmy Diresta, Crafted Workshop, Jonny Builds, Foureyes Furniture, Shaun Boyd, Modern Builds with Mike Montgomery, HomeMadeModern with Ben, and the list goes on and on. So if you were thinking about getting started with woodworking, but you weren't quite sure where to begin, I hope you found this video valuable. And if you did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys where you're at along in your woodworking journey. And I'll see you guys in the next one.